Hello friends, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about fall reading, and I'm going to recommend all of my favorite books to read in the fall. So hopefully you can add them to your TBR, and let's get into the fall spirit, shall we? Okay, so this is what I think about when I think about fall reading. I think about dark academia, thrillers, a little bit of horror, like that spooky feeling. I know some people think about like Gilmore Girls and relaxing and like fall themed rom-coms. Now I am like, give me the thriller, give me intensity, make me feel like I'm in October and spooky season. So that's where we're going here. And if that's not your thing, maybe this isn't the video, but I do have a little bit of rom-coms in here, some kind of darker stories, and then some like sci-fi things. So hopefully there's something in here that excites you when you want to add to your TBR. I have quite a lot of books to talk about, so I'm going to try to talk about them pretty quickly and just give you a glimpse into them to get you excited. Let's start with the most fall themed book, which is the X Hex. I mean, looking at this book, if this doesn't make you think of fall, I don't know what else will, or rather, if this doesn't make you think of October, I don't know what else will. This story basically follows a girl who family is all witches, and she turns into, or doesn't really turn into a witch, but she continues the witch family tradition, and she falls in love with this guy, broken heart, and she basically casts a spell on her ex by mistake because she was sad that the relationship ended and they have to fix it essentially. So this is really fun family short novel, so highly recommend if you're looking to really get into an October mood. This will get you into that October mood. The next one I have is more of, I would say, a sci-fi kind of darker feminist style book, and is The Vokes. Basically the story is about the government putting a restriction on how many words a day females can speak. So females can only speak 100 words a day, and so they're limited to that, and they have to otherwise be completely quiet. So it's pretty interesting story in how these women are banding together to try to end this, and what comes along with only having 100 words a day. Like, I cannot fathom what that would be like. Things kind of escalate as well, so not only do they only have 100 words a day, but they start to lose their rights to read, they start to lose their right to learn, etc., etc. So it's very interesting sci-fi reality of like what our world could potentially look like if we really didn't have any form of female rights. So I think this was really fun to read. It was interesting, and I could see this being a really cool movie. So I just think it's in the fall spirit because it's like thought-provoking and just kind of, you know, something that's a little bit darker, fun to read in that sense. So I don't know, highly recommend. Another very dark style book is Vicious by B.E. Schwab. She's also the writer who writes The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And this book isn't well talked about, and I don't know why, because it is really fun. Essentially, this follows two boys who are trying to redefine what our human bodies are capable of, and the fact of like superhuman. So how do we become superhuman? They discover that essentially you have to have a near-death experience to then become superhuman. And so these two boys doing science experiments to have that happen is quite dark, but it is very interesting to see where it leads them and the turns that happen because of it. So highly recommend this. It's another super underrated book that I think would be so fun to read. Think of a scenery like it's raining outside, you're cozied up on your couch, it's starting to get colder, and the book I recommend for that is Supermarket. This is by Bobby Hall. So if you don't know, he is a singer, he's really more of a rapper on Logic. And this book is so stunning. Like, it's basically a psychological thriller of this guy who works at a supermarket, and you're starting to wonder if he is seeing reality or if he's dreaming up what's going on around him. So the entire book you're trying to understand if he is having kind of more of like a psychological break or if this is actually what's going on. And it's so good. And the twist at the end I loved, and I don't know, I just found this, like, if you love psychological thrillers, this is really good, especially for Bobby Hall writing this is like a first novel. I loved it, and I think it needs to be talked about more, so here I am. Next, I really think, you know, September, October, there's lots of weddings going on. So when I think of like wedding style books for the fall, I'm not thinking like cutesy wedding style books. What comes to my mind to fall in line with that, if you have any weddings to go to, is this book, The Guest List. And please don't mind the sticker, I cannot pull it off for the life of me, so it's gonna live there for the rest of its life. But The Guest List is by Lucy Foley, and this one is really well talked about. If you haven't read this already, I highly suggest adding it to your list. But basically it's a group of people that go to an island for a wedding, and someone dies, and you're trying to discover who on this guest list is the killer. And it's just like spooky because it's like an island that you get the sense is like dark, not a lot of people around, water surrounding it, cliffs even, and their wedding is just kind of put on the side while everyone's trying to figure out like how this person died and who is responsible. So it's very fun and spooky, and fitting for, you know, wedding season that's October and September. I can't stop talking about this, and I won't stop talking about this, so if you've heard me talk about this in another video, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. This is Viridity by Colleen Hoover, and it is definitely a dark thriller style book. So warning, the beginning of this is kind of questionable or uncomfortable, but it gets so good, and I read this in a day and the twists are just unbeatable. So it's super fun when you finish the book to like go and read everyone else's reviews and everyone else's comments. It just feels like a collective book club on like discussing the ending. So it was a lot of fun, and I feel like this is amazing for October spooky season to really get you into the feels. I know that not only myself but a lot of other people after reading this felt kind of weird in their house, like, you know, when you're finished watching a horror movie and you're like, I'm a bit terrified to go to bed now. This is what this will make you feel like. I have 2 more books here, so I'll try to run through them a little bit quicker. The next one I have is My Dark Vanessa. I've talked about this in one of my wrap-ups very in detail, so I won't go too much in detail for this one. But My Dark Vanessa is kind of a dark academic vibe, and I would definitely suggest reading trigger warnings before reading this. It follows a girl who is in elementary school and is getting groomed by her professor, and it follows her story of basically understanding what happened to her and coming to terms with maybe the fact that it wasn't a relationship that is typical, and her love for him has less to do with her feelings but more to do with how he put a power dynamic over her to make her feel that way, and took advantage of her when she was very vulnerable. But it's very well done, and it gives a lot of empathy to the topic. Again, extremely disturbing to read, but I felt really excited by the way that the author pursued writing this and how she wrote it. So recommend. Last book I have is The Last Housewife. I just finished this one, so I really want to go more into detail on this on my September wrap up, but I will discuss it a little bit here. And it is so fun. If you're a really big horror junkie, thriller junkie, you love you know, that uncomfortable feeling of something being extremely disturbing but also having so many amazing twists, then you'll love this book. Highly recommend looking at the trigger warnings because everything about sexual abuse is basically talked about in this story, but it is really interesting. And if you're fascinated by cults and how they take advantage of people, then you'll be fascinated by this story, because essentially this is a very interesting cult that comes about, and two girls are murdered in the story, and we're trying to figure out how, why, and if their murder is actually a murder or if they're framed as suicides. It's very interesting, and you follow the whole journey of going deep inside of a cult and discovering the truth. So lots of fun. Disturbing? Yes, but fun. That's all of my suggestions for fall. I know this is probably not the typical fall book suggestion video you've come across, as I really love to dive really deep into thrillers, disturbing novels, and more of that spooky season feel. But that's just my vibe, and I hope that you really enjoyed this and found something that you can add to your TBR for this season, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!